All right, we are on, Octavia. Thank you so much for being here with me again. I always love our chats, and today I want to chat about what what it's like to not what it's like to be 3D, 4D, 5D, but I want to understand someone who is in 3D compared to someone who's in 4D compared to someone who's in 5D,
Hi,
and see
Lisa.
where this takes us.
Hi, Lisa, and thank you very much for your invitation. Once again, it's lovely to be here with you. It's also lovely to be able to channel these messages and to bring them further. And when I don't channel as well, whatever comes, it usually comes being aligned with that energy of channeling and of the light beings and the cosmic realm. So let's see, you're asking what would be the difference between how a person thinks in being in the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, no, the third dimension, fourth dimension, and fifth dimension.
And how their reality would look like. Is there a difference between the dimensions? I don't know. Maybe there's a difference of what it looks like to be in each dimension.
Mm-hmm. So firstly, I think it's really important to start with saying that all dimensions are overlapping. Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't, it's not that something happens there and something else happens here and, you know, something is completely outside this reality, but all these realities overlap, which means that whenever we shift our frequency, we shift our vibrational field, it works like changing the channel. Now we change the channel, we have a different reality. We change the channel again, we have a new reality, and so on. This is exactly how these dimensions and the frequencies that correspond to them function. And what gives the three-dimensional reality, it's a specific range of frequencies. What gives the four-dimensional perception of the reality is as well a range of frequencies. I would start this to have a bit of a more grounding data. I would say that a person who functions in the third dimension or having this third dimensional perspective, how we call it in our New Age spirituality, it means that that person functions mostly into the beta state of mind, which is the most common one, is that state in which the mind emits the brain waves, which are very much aligned with the beta state and the frequencies which are available for the beta state. And it means that it will perceive this reality only accordingly to what can be perceived in this beta state. It doesn't mean that that person will not fluctuate. This happens naturally. We're changing our brainwaves all the time. We are fluctuating from the beta state into the alpha state when we are a bit more relaxed, into deeper states when we meditate, like the theta state, the gamma state. So I would say that even for a person who normally functions in the beta state will still fluctuate. And we still have a bit of the theta state at times, that state of being dreamy and allowing yourself to be completely relaxed. There will be people who once in a while they still tap into that state in which they have a very still mind and so on. It's just that for those who have this three-dimensional perspective, they function mostly into that beta state, which means that as they wake up, they start the day, they function throughout the day, they go through their common daily activities and so on. Their brain is mostly emitting those brain waves which correspond to a certain frequency which is aligned with the beta state. So that would be the third dimension. Yeah, to relate to it from a more scientific point of view, that would be the third dimension.
Okay.
It means that people will perceive the reality as being, very real. I know that it sounds funny, reality being real, but they would perceive this, what they encounter through their five senses will be perceived as being very real. They will have the feeling that things are linear, that everything happens in a linear way, which means that time is linear, there is past, there is present, there is future.
Mm-hmm.
It means that one moment is always connected to the next moment and the next moment and the next moment, because they do not see that the mind creates this fake continuity from one moment to another.
Mm-hmm.
There is actually just one moment, the next one is completely different. But the mind creates, the three-dimensional mind creates this continuity. The four-dimensional mind, the fifth-dimensional mind, they're still creating this continuity, but you see it, you become aware of it. And then intentionally you decide, do I want it or not? So from the third dimensional perspective, this is not sin. The person lives with the impression that whatever is perceived through the five senses is completely real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It relates to, it sees the world from a linear point of view. It perceives time as being linear. Time is not fluid. Moments of past, moments of future cannot be accessed. Everything has a very clear structure, very rigid structure. There is separation, and separation is formed because of the identification with the body. The third dimensional mind says, I am this body. It says, I am this person. Therefore, whoever has another body, that is a different person. And whatever else I perceive through my five senses, any other three-dimensional objects, those are also different. So the idea of separation is created by the beta mind saying, I am this body. It comes out, actually the entire realm of duality springs out from the idea of I am this or I am that, which means I am limited to this or to that, which means that the three-dimensional mind doesn't really see that it is the reality, that there is no separation. It has the feeling that everything which is perceived, it is perceived by something which is this body. It creates a false identification. Yeah, we'll move further, and then I'm going to explain this better, because I know that it's not very easily to be grasped by many. I'm also very much aware that there are many of the very nice masters, being them from India or spiritual teachers of our nowadays, or just people who have a very strong practice in meditation. They will all tell you the same thing. Whatever you perceive through the five senses, it's an illusion. It's a projection of what it is within. Well, the three-dimensional mind doesn't know it. The three-dimensional mind thinks that what is real is unreal, and what is unreal is real, which means that it doesn't take too much into consideration what happens within, and it relates very much to what it is perceived through the five senses. It considers that which is perceived not to be a projection, but be the reality itself. Starting from here, you can realize a bit how the four-dimensional mind is and how the fifth-dimensional mind would be. The four-dimensional mind starts to observe the body, starts to observe thinking, starts to observe emotions, sensations. There is a sense of detachment. There is something within that says, if I can observe all this, it means that I'm not this. It's a sense of freedom that opens up. It's the beginning of it, but it starts opening up. The four-dimensional mind starts seeing that things are not really separated. It has the feeling that everything seems to be a mirror. So it's not very clear. It doesn't know that everything is a projection, but it has the feeling that everything is a mirror, and that what it thinks might have an influence upon it. So it starts opening up, it starts taking responsibility, it starts saying there are no others to be blamed. I am responsible, I am creating, I can see the projection. it's not really aware that it's a projection, but it starts seeing that there is a correspondence in between, there is a correlation in between thinking, feeling, and what it is perceived. This is when people start experiencing synchronicities. This is when, you know, they start loving it, because suddenly it seems that they do something and they are in control and it makes sense, and they start being in the natural flow. And yet in the fourth dimension, it's not fully open. This understanding and the expansion of consciousness, it's not complete. Though that sense that I feel that I'm one with others or with everything else, I have the feeling that there is a strong correlation here in between what happens within me and what I observe without. There is this sense of detachment, as I said. I see these thoughts, but I know now that I don't need to run after them. I know that I'm not really supposed to engage with them. There is a space there in between them and me. And if I can observe that, if I can observe the mind, it means that it's not me. There is also a sense of observing the body and the changes that happen in the body, and a feeling that says, well, if I can observe this, then this might also not be the real one. It's mostly the most important change as one shifts the vibration from the third dimension to the fourth dimension is this sense of responsibility. Something from within says there is no one to blame anymore. I am the one who makes it. And as I am the one who makes it, I take the responsibility and I start fixing things from inside. That's a huge step. That's a huge one. Because until this decision is taken, there is absolutely no chance, or almost no chance, for someone to move, to shift the vibration from the third dimensional one to the fourth dimensional one.
So you stop blaming others for your problems, right? You stop blaming others for your problems. You stop the victim mentality as well, I'm sure.
Being very attentive here, that there is a trick of the mind. The mind has a certain trick in the third dimension. It says, now I don't blame others. I don't blame my parents. I don't blame my wife and so on. I blame society. Society is the fault. Are the governments and everything that happens at the organization, and it has such a bad structure and so on, and it's their fault. And that's the trick, a very good trick of the third dimensional mind. It says, now I take responsibility upon me, upon my relationships, upon everything which is personal, and the blame is brought on that which is quite distant from me. It's like whatever structure is their organization, society, they are to be blamed of. And that's another trick of the three-dimensional mind, and it's exactly the same thing. There is no difference in between saying it's the fault of my mother or it's the fault of society.
Or this government.
So many people get stuck there. Many people get stuck there. They say, oh, I am awakened now. I've raised my vibration. I'm very much present. I can create and manifest as I wish to. But this society, these people will never be awakened. You know, it's the same stories, the same duality, exactly the same three-dimensional story. Only for the mind seems to be different. Only for the mind. It's exactly the same story. It creates exactly the same vibration. Even more, it can trap one more, because one has the feeling that somehow one knows more than another, and then it can even enhance the sense of duality. So it's a huge trick. That's why I always say stay humble. And stay humble, because everyone is you. There is no one better, there is no one worse, there is no one to know less, there is no one to, you know, this reality is all a reflection of what happens within. If you get this, then you will be very humble. Because you will also know that this reality is a reflection of the subconscious mind, not only the conscious mind. And you're not really in control of the subconscious mind. There are certain high spiritual teachers or masters who might be, but not many. So anything at one point can come out from the subconscious mind. And for that reason, it's good to stay humble.
Mm-hmm.
So as going a bit back to the four-dimensional perception, there are many changes. It means to take the responsibility. There is a great sense there into realizing there is no one's fault. I have always been responsible. This reality has always been created. It's always a projection of what it is inside, of how my subconscious mind works, on how the conscious mind works, on my thoughts, feelings, internal vibration. When this state is reached, then many doors start to open. There is a great sense of freedom. There is still a lot of exploration, because at that time, when the mind functions in the four-dimensional frequencies, it doesn't really have full control upon the projection. It also doesn't have full acceptance. It means that there will be times in which the four-dimensional mind can even suffer very much. And this is because the thoughts started to be manifested much faster than previously, but one is not in full control upon them. And one is also not in full acceptance. Therefore, in the four-dimensional perspective, and a person who functions in these radiant frequencies will try hard to train himself, herself, through meditation, through yoga techniques, to any spiritual techniques, or call them however you wish to call them. You can even call them very cognitive techniques that help one to gain the control over the mind. Once more, it's not about gaining the control upon reality, upon the projection, upon what it is perceived through the five senses. It is to gain control upon what happens within. Control doesn't mean to try to change emotions. It doesn't mean to try to change thoughts, at least not in the first phase. It doesn't mean to try to change things. It means to observe, to be detached, to realize that you're not that who thinks, that you're not the mind, that you're not obliged to believe those thoughts. So one who is there will put all his or her energy into going further, expanding the consciousness more, because they got that what they think manifests, they got the correlation, and they have the realization this is the most important thing. So if one who functions in the third dimension would say, okay, the most important is to go to work, raise my children, have a family, do all this, the one who already shifted to the fourth dimension will have the realization what it is the most important is to be in control upon what happens within myself. Because this is how this whole projection is created, is being created. So that's a huge step. That's the step in which at the time when many come on this path, they start meditating, they start bringing their attention within, they start their own process of healing, really looking deeply, watching those emotions, accepting them, going deeper and deeper, observing thoughts, observing mind patterns, beliefs, which are not anymore aligned with their intentions, their wishes, recognizing those, recognizing where they come from, what emotions they bring with them, staying with all those, taking the full responsibility. Then as they shift, as we shift towards the fifth dimension, it means that the range of frequencies in which we function is different. And I love to give this example about some of our actual spiritual teachers, like Sadhguru, for example. When he went to the doctor to have an EEG, the doctor said, well, your brain looks like it's dead, or you're dead, or the brain, or your brain is dead. And that was because his mind functions completely in the gamma state. It functions in a very high frequency. And there is no, it looks like on an EEG, it looks like there is no thinking process. Actually, it is, but it is so fast in such a high frequency that it is not recognized. And it is not like for an usual human being. There are no thoughts that are translated into language. There are thoughts, but they look very much different. There are images, three-dimensional objects. It might be light language. You know, it depends a lot on the teacher and the master. But the mind, the brain, doesn't look like it has actually a thinking process. And this is because their brain functions mostly in the gamma state.
Wow.
In the fourth dimension, for the human beings who perceive this reality from the fourth dimensional frequencies, their brain functions mostly in the alpha state, you know, that state of relaxation, of meditation, into the theta state when they wish to. They usually shift intentionally into the theta state to access their subconscious mind, to receive guidance, to connect with different beings. It depends of their orientation. And at times in deep meditation, they experience the gamma state. Some of those, they even know how to maintain the gamma state for longer periods of time. It's just that a part of their old belief system is still there and is still active. And that's why they cannot maintain it all the time.
Okay.
As that person shifts to those higher frequencies, and maybe it's also very interesting, you know, to finally explain what high frequencies means. You know, because you'll hear so many spiritual people talking about low frequencies, high frequencies. And for those who are not into spirituality, you know, it looks very weird. And unfortunately, they cannot really understand, they cannot really relate. For a person who has studied physics, doesn't really make sense. You use frequency, but it's not that frequency. So what are you referring to? So I would say, I don't know how others do it. When I use this term, when I refer to frequency, I refer to that frequency which is determined by the brain waves. Yeah, no other.
Yeah, a unit of
frequency
measurement like a
interpretation.
megahertz, unit of measurement, something
That
that can be measured.
that can be perfectly measured,
Yeah.
and you usually an EEG will even show exactly what is the range of frequencies for the beta state, what it is for the alpha state, for the theta state, the gamma state, the delta state. Yeah, so as one shifts to the fifth dimension and reaches those frequencies, that range of frequencies, then everything changes. There is a clear perception, if you can call it perception, that whatever it is perceived through the five senses, it's a projection. That happens because everything happens very fast. You think and you manifest, you think and you manifest, you think and you manifest. You have read most probably, you have read those descriptions that refer to the other world or what happens after death. And, you know, beings coming back and explaining that whatever they think, they are projected there or they manifest very easily. Well, this is the state of the fifth dimension. Yeah, whatever you think, you see it or you perceive it through your five senses. It happens in the moment. Yeah, there is no time delay. Therefore, there is no doubt. There is no doubt that you're creating it. Even if you do not have 100% control over it and the subconscious mind is still creating it, you see it immediately. Even that intention being brought by the subconscious mind is manifested. You make the correlation in between the two of them, and you know whatever it is projected, whatever it is perceived through the five senses is a projection. of my thoughts, vibration, feelings. There is no doubt. Therefore, if whatever is perceived through the five senses is a projection, you will not consider another being another.
Right.
That
They're all
sense of
created by you.
another, exactly, that sense the other is you. So in the fifth dimension, as we change to that range of frequencies, then everything becomes very, very clear. Whatever it is perceived, has been projected. There is no need to engage with the projection. There is no need to believe in it. There is no need to try to change it. Because it's like going to a cinema, having the movie on the screen, and seeing fire and trying to bring some water to cool down the fire. So you realize it doesn't work. It's sick.
Right.
It seems, it doesn't make sense anymore. So you'll not try to interact with the projection. You'll just leave the projection. Even wishes, desires are not there anymore, because that inner sense is strongly saying everything is already perfect as it is. And whatever is meant to happen is brought through a simple intention, if that intention comes. There were masters, there were spiritual teachers who didn't have any thoughts anymore, no intentions. They would just, go with the life flow. There is an explanation for that as well, because normally as you reach this state, at one point the body cannot be projected. The body is also projection, is a projection of the mental side.
Yes.
It just happens that when one reaches that state, it takes a while for everything to be unwinded, for everything to unfold itself, everything that was created before. And that's why the body is still there, and it will be for a while and so on. But actually there is no one there. There is no mind. There is no thought most of the times. Therefore, there is no creation. Yeah, so this is the fifth dimension. One knows that there is no separation. It has never been. One knows that whatever was treated as being real was unreal, and whatever was being treated as being unreal is the real. There is nothing to achieve anymore. One knows I am that I am.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing can be added to this. Nothing can be taken away. There is nothing that can change this. In other words, in more New Age spirituality, you can say I am source, and I've always been source. And there is a deep realization that this is what I am. This is what I've always been. Even when there were many thoughts and the whole identification, I was still that. I couldn't see it, but I was still that. And none of all this has never affected me. So of course, in this state, one will mostly act for the benefits of all the others, if we call them all the others, for the two-dimensional mind to understand it. One will have no personal gain, no personal purpose. One will be a simple vessel for life to flow through.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So I hope that this explanation is somehow clear. I hope as well that in this way we motivate those who just started to see synchronicities and to kind of get the relationship in between their way of thinking, feeling, and vibration and what happens. I hope that what I have explained today motivate those to actually go for a very serious practice.
And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I felt like if people knew where they are, they would understand how to get to ascension, that's the word ascending, is getting to 5D, right? Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah, ascending means to expand the consciousness, to remember who you truly are. And wherever you are in these so-called levels, the only answer is to actually go within, meditate, do your spiritual practice, observe what happens, Even if you're there in the 3-dimensional frequencies, 4-dimensional ones, that's the way of going. I just hope that those ones who are already, you know, experiencing the 4-dimensional reality, they're a bit more motivated.
Yes.
And instead of going for manifestation, let's manifest everything, which doesn't bring one anywhere, will mostly go for going deeper within. They will go deeper within.
Mm-hmm.
To manifest is amazing. Manifestation is a great tool just for one thing, for seeing the correlation, the relationship between thinking and what it is perceived. That's the only reason why manifestation is an amazing tool. If it's taken at that level, if it's taken like, now I can manifest so I can make myself happy through manifestation, then it's the same 3-dimensional story.
Right.
It says the same thing. I am dependent on this and that, on the projection to make me happy, and I don't see what I really am. So the only way to use manifestation, or the way I would guide people to use manifestation, is to discover this relationship in between thinking, emotions, vibration, and what it is perceived. Otherwise, it's a never-ending game. It's a game that will never seem to be complete. The mind will continue to say, do this and you'll be happy, do that and you'll be happy, and so on. It's not the game that you wish to follow, and it's not a 5th-dimensional one.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you very much for this lovely question today. I'm also very happy to have brought it to you and to all of you who are going to watch and you're watching this. And if you have any questions, please write to me. If you feel like doing so, you'll find me on Pleiadian Transmissions of Light and Love on Facebook. Elisa maybe can also post my email address and some details for joining our Telegram group. And very soon, I promise you, I'm going to come up with a new website and you will find me there as well. So it was a pleasure for me to bring all this information up today. I really hope that it's very useful and it motivates you to go further, not to get stuck there and not to have the impression that that's it, but really to go further, to explore your spiritual practices even more, to get into meditation, to adopt it as a very serious practice. I also kindly remind you that I hold a meditation group every Monday, and I'm very happy when new people join it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Elisa, for this great opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that we had this discussion, because I think it would clear things up for people. So if it resonated with you, please share it. The more people we have knowing this information, the better. And remember that you are loved. And as I always say, stay high vibing. So take care, everybody. Thank you.